Okay, so we're moving on to red. Josh, first card that pops out at you.
Brimstone Volley is the first one that pops out at me. 3 mana to do 3 damage to target creature or player is completely acceptable for me to play in any limited format. And Morbid doing 5 is just icing on the cake. You play it, like you play this in any deck. It's definitely first pickable in draft and splashable in sealed.
Personally, it's between this and Victim of Night being the best, and I actually could see this card being better, since it actually can deal with literally almost everything but the mythics, once you have Morbid, and I think that's pretty important.
Like, I could see as and this card's a common, like I could see getting a couple of these in my draft deck, and drafting an aggressive red-black deck, and just love-axing people out of the game. You know, like there's a bunch of 1 and 2 cost red and black creatures that can form a pretty aggressive deck.
And being a removal light set obviously makes it even better. And the fact that most of the creatures don't have 3 defense or more, so that is pretty much removal.
Yep, it can kill pretty much everything before it has Morbid, and then can kill everything else once it does. It's going to be good in all of your red decks.
I'm looking at a card right next to that one in the spoiler, and that's Burning Vengeance. And this is one of those cards that my inner Johnny starts coming out at me. Just all you have to do is flashback a card and deal 2 damage to a creature or player. How do you guys feel how powerful this card could possibly be as kind of a gimmick deck?
It feels like Rise to me, where it's an archetype deck, like Raid Bombardment, where like if you build that deck at the table, it could be really good, but outside of that, it's just going to be a garbage card.
Yeah, like,
oh, I agree.
Think like Furnace Celebration's another good example. Like, if you had the Furnace Celebration deck, it was crazy. Like, if you have the Burning Vengeance deck, you're going to have a lot of spells that you're going to want to play anyways, that you're going to be able to flash back.
All right, think twice. Oh.
Yeah. Yeah.
In this format being so slow, is a 3rd turn enchantment that doesn't do anything when you play it. You're saying it could be worth it in the long run, since it's going to be a longer game anyway.
And sealed, I just don't see this card getting played, just because you can't guarantee that you'll have those flashback cards you want. But as we were saying, in draft, you really can build around this card and abuse it.
Right, you need a high amount of flashback cards before you could even consider playing it. Like, probably like 8 minimum, just to like really be getting. Like, if it's gonna cost 3 and not do anything at all to the board, you want it to be high impact when it does start working.
Yep, and 2 damage kills all the low end threats. Like, you'll be able to kill anything you want with it, pretty much. That's not already a bomb. Like, anything that's not like a bomb uncommon or just gigantic. Like, most of the small creatures, like we said before, have 2, like 1, 2. A few have 3 toughness. We're looking at. I was looking at Geist Flame. This is actually probably a fine card to play in most red decks also. Like, there are a lot of 1 toughness creatures, and flashing it back later on still seems fine. And, like, it's not insane by any means, but it's, like, definitely playable and definitely better in this format than, like, this spell would be in most others.
I mean, it always deals with those annoying creatures that you just got to get rid of. Or the fact that if it's in your graveyard and a 3/3 is going up against a 4/4. It just helps you get that one little pushback with the flashback if you have to.
And talking about that archetype, I think one of the best cards to be pairing with that enchantment is this Hanweir Watchkeep, the 1/5 wall. It goes perfectly in those decks because you go from being the defensive deck, setting up, to just killing them very quickly.
This is the first werewolf we've looked at since we've been talking about the set, and I just want to make a point about the werewolves. Like, they're going to flip in limited all the time, and like, it's going to be hard to flip them back. And if you do, they're probably just going to flip again the next turn because you're not going to have enough spells to keep them. Like, you're not going to have enough spells to keep them from flipping. And when they flip, they're going to be huge and high impact, and some of the best creatures in the format. I would suggest killing them before they flip, or having a good plan to deal with them, because these guys are huge.
Well, the fact is in order to get this guy flipped, the Watchkeep, if no spells was cast last turn, he flips to the 5/5. The following turn, how can I expect my opponent to even play 2 spells if he didn't play 1 last turn?
Well, it could be your turn too, though. Like, if you just pass, he flips. Then your opponent has to play multiple spells to flip him back, and you like if in like for example like in a blue-red deck, you could just pass with you just pass the turn with counter magic because the same player has to play 2 spells for it to flip back. So you just pass, flip your werewolf, and wait, and make your opponent play all the spells in their hand trying just to get your werewolf to flip back because it's too big to deal with. Because that guy is a 5/5 who's coming at you every turn, and that's just like we said before. Like that is just huge, and that's a 3-drop. That guy can be attacking you on turn 4.
Yep. Actually, the most important thing that I've seen in the spoiler is that they're all humans and werewolves to begin with, so there's hardly any removal that hits them until they flip. Like that bonds pacifism does it pumps them until they flip. And then Victim of the Night doesn't hit it either because it's a werewolf to begin with.
And just to clarify, when transform happens, they don't actually leave play, correct?
Correct. It's just like flipping a morph card.
So you could pacify something and it would remain.
It'll stay pacified, yeah.
Okay.
Except with this, it would only pump it until it flipped.
It would be pacified once it flips, but then if you like it ever flipped, even whenever it's flipped back, it's still just going to be able to block and things like that because it says non-human and non-werewolf, so like it's still just it would just not affect them once it was a human again.
Now here's a question. I'm just taking a quick poll. Who's going to use the actual card and flip it back and forth, and who's going to use the checklist?
I'll probably get the actual card once.
Yeah, we'll probably use an actual card if you play sleeves, but like the checklists are a fine option too. If you don't have sleeves or you don't feel like using them, like because sometimes I'm just lazy and don't sleeve up my decks in limited, and like the flip card, like the checklists are fine. You know, just keep the card handy and like no big deal.
Well, my issue with this is I don't want to be in the middle of a match and having to pull my card out of a sleeve and putting it back in and putting it back on the battlefield. I mean, who knows how many times that guy's going to flip within the match? I mean, wouldn't it be better just to pick up some clear dragon shields to be able to flip those back and forth?
Yes and no, but I mean, yeah, you'd have to then use a proxy in your deck, so you can't see when the card's coming, obviously.
Right.
I'm not sure where I stand on it yet. I think I'll just take playing with it once at a pre-release or whatever to figure it out myself.
Yeah, everyone's just gonna have to figure out how they like to do it for themselves. Like taking it out of the sleeve and like just leaving it on the table, flipping it back and forth is always fine too. And so it's just like everyone's just gonna find their comfort zone with it.
Yeah, and the mechanic seems really cool, and it seems, as far as my opinion on werewolves, they change the way you play. You have to, both sides of the table have to be looking at this and thinking, okay, what do I need to do to stop this from transforming? Because or make it transform. Like you said, if you're the one playing the card and you decide not to play anything, they better hope they have an instant in your end step to keep it from flipping, or have 2 spells on their turn, which is usually unlikely in a limited format. So yeah, I definitely see this as being a game changer.
Right.
Yep. And this isn't even like probably the most powerful werewolf. The other thing I wanted to like say is like drafting with these cards adds like a whole new wrench to drafting just completely. Larry, what did you think about the flip cards like in draft?
I am okay with this. The only concern I have is when I'm playing with a group of people that have a good knowledge of draft, this is absolutely fine, because if I see my opponent next to me is in green because he put down one of these double-faced cards, I know that, I probably should stay away from green. But if I'm playing with a little bit less experienced people that don't understand that dynamic, I can really see some cutoffs happening and some issues happening.
Yeah, it seems like it'll add an interesting dynamic, and I feel like it actually gives people who are learning the draft and people who are less experienced a really good opportunity to learn like how signals work and things like that. I actually think it's almost better to be able to see better this way. Like you can like send really good signals by taking those kinds of cards really early. Everyone will know at the table knows that this is what I'm doing. Stay away from this, or it's going to be weird later on. Like if everyone has been in a draft where they've just been completely cut off of their colors in the second pack, and no one likes it. And so, like, cooperative drafting is really important, and people are going to start to learn it very quickly when they start playing with these cards.
Now, they have said that it's public information when I put this card on the table. If I'm sitting across from a table from a guy and I see him put that down, if I'm sitting at a big round table, I mean, is it ethical to stand up to go look at his card to see what he grabbed?
I don't know.
Yeah, it is public knowledge, and I think you can actually ask to see it. It's required. Originally, they said that you could hide it and things like that when you drafted a card if you wanted to. But since then, they have changed it and said that it has to be placed on top of your draft, just like any other pick. It has to be placed on top of your pile for everyone to see. So I would imagine, since it's public information, you can ask to see it. But I would think we probably get a judge to clarify before you do your first draft.
Oh, I agree.
Okay, so other cards that you guys like.
Yeah, I like Harvest Pyre, but it's interesting because like blue and black both kind of punish you for removing your graveyard. Black has a lot of recursion, and blue has a lot of removing creature effects or flashback cards. So I think it's going to be best in like red-green or red-white, where your graveyard's outside of like Make-A-Wish, your graveyard's pretty irrelevant in those colors.
But realistically speaking, Harvest Pyre can deal with anything.
Yeah, realistically, you're going to play it in every deck that you have it in. Like, you're always going to play it, and you're just going to hope you don't have to remove anything to remove. Like, this is hard to come by, and it's going to be able to deal with mostly everything that you come across, theoretically.
Right, and we haven't seen a lot of protection from color in this set. It's normally been, a tribal protection.
Yeah, actually, now that I'm thinking about it, I don't think we've seen any protection from color, just different protection from different tribes.
Mm-hmm.
One card that I'm really excited to play with is Into the Maw of Hell. It's a 6-mana sorcery that destroys any land, and then also deals 13 damage to target creature. And 13 just seems kind of like that funny number, if everybody remembers Shivan Meteor from past sets. I mean, it's going to kill anything that is in the set, even the blue guy that transforms into a 13/13.
And you get to say its name when you cast it. That's an awesome name.
The art's really cool, too.
And I think it's just going with the, like we were talking earlier, the flavor of it, and 13's unlucky number, and it's really cool.
One guy that I really like is the Pitchburn Devils, the 5-mana 3/3, and when he dies, he deals 3 damage to a target creature or player. I mean, this guy is really good in both an aggressive and a defensive deck. I mean, nobody wants to attack into this guy and lose 2 creatures, and nobody wants to block this guy and lose a creature on top of it.
Yeah, he's very big. He's very high impact. I think he's well costed, and he's always gonna be a game changer when he comes down.
Yeah, definitely. And you can always build around him. Like we were talking about that Altar's Rape earlier, where you want to get extra value out of sacrificing creatures, and that's one way to do that.